First, let's take roll. Alec Mosley.
Here.
Greg Maloof.
Here.
Dan Sargent.
Here.
Dan Brown. Katie Trahan.
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. I assume everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes that Jonathan sent out. Any issues, anything we need to modify, change? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting in February.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Approved.
We have to vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Staff, community reports, Jonathan?
The only thing I'll have is that the Hampton Inn site plan, I think they're still progressing right now. I think the anticipations for the April agenda, I think they're just trying to clarify the sewer easement agreement, make sure everything, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before they bring it, so it can all be done smoothly.
That was the Hampton?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Just curious, any update on DeBose?
I've not heard anything from them. They've kind of gone radio silent since, I think I want to say.
They were hot and heavy before the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think there may be some stuff that I am not privy to that they're working on in terms of, but I am not sure exactly what.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm calling subcommittee came in, and they were trying to finalize their landscape plan as well as their parking and land use plan. So they are working, it's just
not ready
working
for
out the
us.
details.
Okay. Travis, you back there, anything you got to?
Haven't heard anything. I'm the mayor. That was last I heard they was going through their landscape stuff with the bow stuff. And I haven't heard anything more. I kind of followed. She was in the room here with Miss Deborah Kyle and one of her things on the agenda this evening. I'm thrilled with that.
Thank you. Okay, old business, Jonathan?
Yes, so this is the special exception zoning amendment. This was brought up in the October meeting. I think there was some confusion about whether or not it was sent to council. At the time it was tabled, based off the October minutes, because of the readoption of the zoning ordinance. So we want to make sure that if it was incorporated in the zoning ordinance, that it would come after the new readoption. And Nate had asked about putting that back on the agenda, so we put it as old business. The main reason why this is put in is just to give some guidelines for the BZA in the same way that the Planning Commission and the Board Mayor Alderman have, a list. I think it's Section 1007C, or no, 11. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the 5 guidelines. So this is almost, it's mirroring those same guidelines that the Planning Commission, I think the Board Mayor Alderman consider every time they do a zoning amendment. So for special exceptions, just consider the impact that each special exception has on the neighboring properties.
So this is the same that in October or whenever it was
Yes, this is the
last
same.
year?
Yeah, it has not been changed since it was tabled at the October meeting.
Any conversation?
Motion.
Move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Mayor and Alderman the adoption of the proposed ordinance to add additional requirements or special exceptions as contained in our agenda materials.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Katie. All those for?
Well, discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Any discussion, further discussion on Jonathan, anything else to contribute?
I
Anybody?
believe Alderman has, Nate has.
Sorry, dude.
Dean and I were just sitting here looking at it, and he noticed something that I think makes good sense, and I've got concern as well. So Dean's concern first, unless you want to give it.
No, go ahead.
The following requirements must be met before the BZA may grant the special exception. Item A, the special exception request must conform to any current growth and development plans of the town of Monteagle. And it seems to make sense that we should restrict those to those plans that have been adopted by the town of Monteagle. And so the suggestion would be that we add the words adopted by to section A. So that but we've done a lot of plans over time, and some plans are grand, and some plans are small, and some plans get adopted, and some plans we just look at. But that way, it would narrow in the parameters and also keep it from being something that we might do in the future, but do the things, but limited to those plans that we have already.
Some plans that are in place at that time.
Yeah.
And at this time, it's my understanding, on a growth plan, it is the urban growth boundary thing would be the only growth plan there is of record. Nate, would that be a fair thing?
Yeah.
And then the other development plan that would be, that we've talked about and dealing with is Imagine Monteagle. And I think if you, down the road, if you kick the can down the road and somebody comes in and you're saying that there's 4 growth plans or there's 2 different ones or whatever, this is going to be used against somebody, and the council, I guess, can always come back and amend the ordinance or something or whatever. So as long as there's some recall on that, but and I'm okay as long as there's some language in there that we're talking about adopted, that's been adopted as of this date with the growth and development or whatever. But I think that needs to be clarified a little bit. And the other things in there, you know, we're going to require that anyway.
Can we clean up the language to better define?
I mean, yeah, personally, I would say current, there should only be one current growth or development plan. I mean, that's just,
But it would have to be
it has
adopted.
to be, it's.
So and historically, a decade ago, there was a plan that was never actually adopted.
Let me say this, it seems to me that saying that it is a plan of the town of Monteagle means it was adopted. But if that's unclear, I would amend my motion to propose that we recommend the adoption of this proposed ordinance, substituting for the word of in subparagraph A, the words adopted by.
That is me.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'll second that.
And Nick,
We have a motion and a second.
Motion to amend my motion, I guess.
Motion to amend his motion.
Can I bring up one more point so that you only have to amend the motion once? The other thing is purely semantics, so you can throw this out, but the way it's titled currently, it says additional requirements for special exceptions, and it's not actually any requirements. It's simply selection criteria or decision criteria, and to use the word additional requirements just sounds onerous. And since that's not what we're trying to do, I just put that out there as a suggestion.
What are you reading that from? Where
It says an ordinance to amend the Monteagle zoning ordinance to add additional requirements for special exceptions. And we're actually adding selection criteria or can, it's not actually any additional things that anybody would have to do. It's simply giving tools for the BZA to make a decision.
Well, the text of it says add the following requirements. So I'm not sure the title misrepresents what the text says.
I think Nate's saying, instead of saying requirements, put selection criteria.
Yeah,
Well,
and then have it be
it's-
selection
then You're
criteria.
asking for more than a change to the title, because the body says these are requirements.
Yeah, so I don't see any reason why, and maybe this is semantics and not worth it, y'all tell me that, but additional language as follows.
Let's say, the requirements are for the BCA to follow.
Right, they're not requirements for any developer to follow.
Which,
That's the thing.
that's the issue would be, is that the BCA has to follow these requirements.
Yes,
Just like
guidance.
the planning commission has, as we went through, I think last year, every time the planning commission is Senate, they say that this is not going to, whatever, was it section 13, 1207C? I think it's what it is, 1207C. And it's kind of the same concept of that, is that it's just, you're just making sure that you're going through everything and that you're you're not having adversely impacted. If you understand that, you know, a major development is going to adversely impact neighbors, that would be a reason for the BZA to consider. They have to consider that, so that way,
If we pass this motion,
you know.
it goes to the mayor and alderman?
Yep.
Well, one of the things too, the BZA almost had their hands tied. It was a yes or no.
Right.
The BZA was not getting the information that was necessarily needed and couldn't expand. It was basically a yes or no. Does it fit? Does it not?
Yeah, and our legal counsel suggested that this gives the BZA and developers a roadmap to go by.
Yes.
So again, maybe it's not a huge deal. It just struck me that it doesn't seem like a requirement. So I'll let y'all do that.
Any
What you
further
will.
discussion on the motion?
So we're good with motion 2?
You
The
have
amended
voted
motion.
on the motion to amend or the original motion.
Any more discussion
To amend.
to amend the previous motion?
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
So do we need to,
And we need to adopt the motion as amended.
yes. I move that we adopt the motion as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All for?
Aye.
Aye.
All against?
Jonathan, can you get that change made?
Yes, I can get that changed, man. I have a note
You
here.
gotta get him, he's got the information.
I'll make sure.
Thank y'all. And I don't recall why we didn't send it up in October.
It was tabled because of the readoption, so that way we were concerned about, you know, when the
Timing.
readoption, the timing, and that,
Okay.
you know,
Okay, I got you.
I think it never got brought up again until, I think Ada brought
Was
it up.
that the only thing that fell off the table that you?
As far as I'm aware, that was the only ordinance that we tabled.
Okay, next business, is any properly presented old business? Okay, let's go to new business. I have Joseph Estates, final plat.
Mr. Tuesday.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again. I was here in December and we had talked about the previous 2 developments that I'm doing. The first one, I did get all the signatures and that was quite the, a lot of running around to get everything. Everything has been approved and.
You could
just waiting for the
pass that
final-
out so that way you can see that
Waiting
all the
for final,
signatures. So yeah, the main thing with this is the preliminary plat was approved. There is no new infrastructure being put in place. There's no new, utilities. Basically, what my review was that you guys will have, at the preliminary plat, you guys had approved it with a variance for the width to depth ratio. So you'll have to prove that again for the final plat. And as long as all the utility signatures are signed, then it should be fine. Because all the other signatures, so the only signature should be left is Katie's.
All the signatures? are-
Yeah, if all the signatures, I believe he said that all the signatures are
Except for
signed.
the city.
Yeah, except for the planning commission secretary. So if you guys approve this final plat, then you approve it, you would do the variance again with the depth ratio. Because, it violates the width to depth ratio, 3-to-1 that subregs. And that's the only thing that I have, as long as all the other signatures are signed. Because that's the main thing for the final plat.
And there's no question on your checklist as far as utilities or anything?
There's, everything should be, the utilities signing off is fine. There are no new infrastructure, there's no new road, there's no new lines being put in. It's already existing lines there.
Any further discussion?
Well, if I may, these are copies to keep.
I'm sorry, sir.
These are our copies to keep.
Yes.
So you'll sign, Katie, if you guys approve it, you'll sign it. One of those have to go back to him, because that's what he uses to record the register of deeds. The rest stays with the town.
Katie has to sign.
Yeah, I believe there's 5 copies.
Yes, yeah, so Katie will sign all 5 copies.
We approve them minutes, not all.
Yeah.
Jonathan then issued an order to be approved tonight?
Yes, so you have to make sure that you make a variance, a variance for the 3-to-1 width to depth ratio. I believe in the agenda I noted it.
Or does that require a separate motion?
Yes, so you have the variance and then you'll make a motion to approve it once that variance.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the Joseph Estates subdivision final plat with the variance.
To the width to depth ratio.
Yes. What?
With the width depth ratio.
Yes, with the written.
Seconded. We have a second from Alex. Any discussion? All those for?
Aye.
Aye.
All against?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now do you need a motion to accept the site plan?
Yeah, that's the plan, yeah, the site plan, yeah. That's-
Fine,
yeah,
thank you.
This is next one.
So we're done. Next on the agenda is Pink Door Cottage site, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So this one is that there's already existing house, that she owns this property, existing house. She wants to put Airbnb there. She is putting 4 new regular parking spaces and then 1 handicap space. I've already talked to TDOT. There's going to be no issues with the driveway permit. He says there's not, the guy that talked to TDOT said that it's not going to create enough traffic for that to even be a concern. The house itself is not changing besides, I think, whatever things she's doing exterior to make it look nicer and the interior.
Is all the access and egress coming off the highway? Or are you going, I know you own the other property behind the chiropractic clinic, but is all the access and egress is on the property?
Yes, and I sent this to TDOT, and they said they had no issues. I think there was already existing permit, and they said it's not going to create enough traffic for them to be a concern. I believe I've made all the changes that I requested on the site plan, showing everything, and they also have a landscape plan. They have all these certificates there. The main thing I will also say with this, as I had to review this under the site plan regulations, and one thing that I would ask the planning commission consider is that small additions to a building or things like this that are not really, I don't think this is the purpose of what a site plan is. So the way that Monteagle zoning ordinance reads is that any development or redevelopment of these commercial properties, with the exception of certain things. So they had, if it's a single family home or a duplex or an accessory structure, unfortunately this didn't fall under it because it is a commercial use. I would say that, maybe looking to let sketch plans fall under that, where if somebody's doing, an addition to their building, that's, a lot of municipalities have, if it's less than 1,000 square feet addition, then all you need is a sketch plan approved by the building inspector. It's building inspector, the same way as this, because it's not going to be a major development. And I think that's something that I would, suggest outside of this. This is just something I think that should apply to perhaps to, all developments in Monteagle, where it's just small, minor, additions, stuff like that, it not have to be a site plan. Because site plan, requires a lot of work and money to be paid in. I don't think, quite honestly, that the stuff that she's putting in warranted a site plan, but it had to fall under site plan regulations under the current ordinance. But that's aside. That's something that consider after.
It being commercial property versus residential would have a big difference there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that, so a lot of municipalities, for their sketch plan requirements, so it doesn't fall under a site plan, is that if it's if somebody's building and they're doing an expansion of like less than 1,000 square feet, or they're only adding less than 5 parking spaces, it would fall under a sketch plan requirement, stuff like that, where the building inspector would be the one doing it. So it basically would, lead to that. So it makes it a little cheaper, a little easier process for a developer or business owner to be able to do. So they're not having, obviously it's a major development, it's still going to come to planning commission, it's still going to have oversight. But that's something that, I think in this process, recognizing that that's just maybe something in the ordinance that needs to be tweaked. Yeah.
And this meets all the zoning requirements?
Yes, it does meet all the site plan requirements.
And it's in the proper zone?
Yeah, what's that?
It's in the proper zone?
Yes. And all of it is C1 around it, so it won't have any impact on any of the commercial properties around it. And like I said, it's a very minor development. It's really not going to have much of an impact, I think, on the properties around it. Because the house is already existing, and there's added some parking. And,
It'll fall more on Travis than.
Yeah. I mean, Travis is going to have to make sure everything's up to code on the inside. And really, honestly, the main thing is going to be on the inside of the building, make sure everything's up to code rather than, the outside.
Other than the landscape.
Yeah, the landscaping, which they already have existing trees. I believe she has the landscaping plan there showing that, they're going to retain all the existing trees and shrubs, basically all of that there. So it fulfills the landscape requirement.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes,
Is the parking going to be in front or back?
it's in the back, I believe, from,
Yeah, the
figures an ADA up toward the.
ADA will be right at the house, but the other parking will be in the back.
Right there, but everything else will be in the back. Great, thank you.
And it's a circle, it's a horseshoe,
Yeah.
so they won't have to back out into
Right,
41.
yes, I just.
That's the reason I was asking the question earlier about the other property.
Yeah,
The other property's on a different deed, right?
right,
Okay,
it's right behind the
right,
chiropractic
right,
sign.
okay. Any other discussion?
I move we approve it.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those for?
Aye.
All against?
I
Congratulations.
have to sign the landscape and
Thank you.
before I can sign.
I do.
Okay, next up is retail and commercial in C3.
I'll sign that. You'll need to sign the landscape.
Okay, where is that?
So the C3 is the amendment that you guys requested me to make last month. So basically, currently the existing retail and commercial uses are allowed in C1, C2. This would allow it to also be in C3.
Well, and when we met a month ago, my position was I didn't feel comfortable in making sure I understood the total impact of what we were doing. And I went back and reread the ordinance and how it got in there. It actually went back to the original zoning ordinance that were done, I believe, in '84. There is a recognition and gratitude to the efforts of those citizens who enacted the first zoning ordinance of the town of Mount Eagle, adopted February 23rd, 1984, and effective through and beyond when it was readopted in 2018. Not going to read 600 pages of this, okay, but this is the groundwork for what we were asked to review. This was approved as a group by Dean Lade, the mayor, John Baggestas, Ann Maholt, Raymond Relaford, Charlie Teasley, and Noemi Miller in 1984. And these adoptions and these ordinances and this zoning is what this committee up here has to live with. And there's not a section in here where we get to pick and choose the ones we like and where we don't like. And so I went through and reread everything and looked up the definition. Well, first I looked at the quick reference, and it says the town of Mount Eagle supports growth and development in our community. This is the guideline for the planning commission. Especially small businesses and residents who want to invest in their property. The requirements outlined in this zoning ordinance have been adopted to provide certain minimum standards that will protect public health and safety and provide for quality, orderly development in the town's commercial areas and residential neighborhood. Every effort has been made to preserve individual property rights while also protecting other citizens and businesses from unsafe and incompatible land use. That's our guideline. If we're going to look at something, we're being asked to go outside the guideline, there's guidelines that prohibit that, whether it's a zoning issue or inclusion issue. The courts usually look at individual rights, but they weigh the public will with a greater weight than they do individual rights, or as they call it, the benefited property owner. So I want us to look at this today with open minds. The property we're talking about sits right here. It is zoned C3, correct?
I mean, so I think one thing that I would advise is that this is not about a single piece of property. This will impact
I
all
understand. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, property from here down interstate is C3.
But it's being asked to put this in property that is on C3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Whether it's that piece of property or not, anything that this would impact any property.
Yeah, any property
is
that's C3, yes.
So, the definition of C3 and these ordinances that were adopted years and years ago C3 Interchange Commercial District is intended to meet the special opportunities and needs at interchanges with interstate highways. The district is to serve both the needs of the motoring public and commercial vehicles, as well as addressing the unique commercial opportunities and problems created by access to the interstate highway. Excluded are those uses which do not provide services or accommodations directly towards interstate traffic. So the request is for us to add retail and commercial to C3, and I don't see anything in here that defines retail and commercial meeting the guidelines in C3 for being directly associated with interstate changes.
I think that's part of the issue, I think that I've run into with retail and commercial is there is no current definition.
What are you doing now?
Yeah, part of the issue is that there is no current definition of retail and commercial uses in the Mount Eagle zoning. I think that's something that needs to be defined, but there is no definition, just as there was no definition of convenience stores, and there's a multitude, I think, of others where definitions are important because it helps you clarify what
How many
things
other
are.
items in here that are listed in this huge document are not defined?
What's that?
How many other ones are not defined?
I think there's a number, which I think is kind of going to what Nate's been trying to do, is getting, outside company to help with doing that. And
Yeah, I can give an update on that, but I don't want to interrupt this
Yeah.
process. But
Yeah.
I did talk to them this afternoon and got a contract on it.
Jonathan, the draft ordinance that you provided to us uses the term retail and commercial without any definition. So how-
because there is no definition in Monteagle zoning
Well, if
ordinance.
we adopt the ordinance as you drafted it,
Mhm.
things would remain equally unclear, right?
Yeah. I mean, I drafted it based off of you guys wanting to put something together just to have it, to show that it would be in C3. I don't have any definition because, have not been instructed or given anything to actually draft in terms of a definitions there. If you guys want me to research that, I can look at,
Isn't just about everything
Yeah.
retail?
Well, isn't retail and commercial are not one and the same, so they should not necessarily be lumped
Yeah,
together either.
I think there's different municipalities will, they're kind of divided up because there's a difference between the impact that a huge big box store, Walmart, something like that has versus, a smaller store, but they still serve, some of the same needs, but not at the biggest level. A lot of municipalities, I think, they differentiate between something that's under 15,000 square feet and over 15,000 square feet, because there's really not a lot that's in between. You're either going to be a smaller retail store, or you're going to be a big retail store, and then commercial could, like you said, could mean anything. I don't know. Again, I think that's the weakness of this section, is that there is no definition currently. I think that's something that I would advise that you would give a definition before allowing in another zoning district, just so that way we know exactly what we're getting into by allowing in another zoning district.
Well,
But
some of the other items that are in here that are excluded in C3, adult-oriented establishments. I don't think we need a definition for that. Banks and financial institutions. Commercial kennels. Drugstores and pharmacies, flea markets, funeral homes, the golf courses. So I agree with what has been said here, that commercial, retail and commercial is more of a catch-all, because a lot of these things we're mentioning, I would assume a drugstore would fall under retail and commercial. Maybe not, I'm assuming. Go ahead, Al.
I read the same definition you did, and what I am concerned by is this. We know that this came to our attention because of the desire to do a particular business in this C3 zone down the road. But the proposal is to amend the ordinance so that any retail and commercial operation could be in a C3 zone. And I think were we to do that, interior decorators, I don't know what all constitutes retail and commercial, but it would certainly, I think, do away with the idea that uses which do not provide services or accommodations directed toward interstate traffic are excluded. Because by definition, any retail establishment would be permissible in a C3 zone. And any commercial, whatever that means, additionally, would be permitted in a C3 zone, not just the kind we started talking about before we reached this point. And
I think
that would destroy the concept of a C3 zone.
C3, the definition of C3, it doesn't fit anymore.
yeah, so I would advise that there is there's a definition upon either breaking it apart so that there's different definitions of retail and commercial, so there's different ones apply, So I would say you wouldn't want to have the same application. I mean, you wouldn't want to put a big Walmart in the middle of your central business district. First of all, it wouldn't fit in terms of a lot size, but you wouldn't want to do that. So obviously, that wouldn't make sense. So there has to be some distinctions between, what different retail uses are allowed in these, zoning district, and then what commercial uses means. I think that has been used as a catch-all, perhaps maybe for C1, C2, because that's where a lot of the businesses that you want retail and commercial to be were there. That's where you want it to be. But I would advise that you do put some definition behind it. No, I drafted this simply because that's what I was requested to do last month. I wouldn't advise letting it proceed without some definitions, which again, that's kind of also showing that there is no definitions there. I couldn't put definitions there because there are no definitions.
Well, even if it is, it would have to still be, to fit in C3, it would still have to meet the criteria to be directly related to interstate exchange. So you've got to have two definitions. Or either change C3 description, which I don't think you can do that, because that's the whole concept, the definition, the international definition of C3 is what I read right here, pretty much so, within a few changes. And the only other option would be to change that property to C2.
But given our interstate town and our tax basis, I think that we need interstate-based businesses at our exit. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense to then start changing what we have at our exits. So, I mean, we have to put thought into that. We can't just kind of willy-nilly just mix up what we're doing.
Well, I think our predecessor did a good job on putting what should be in there.
Oh, I do
It's
too.
motels, brewery, but it has to have a restaurant tied to it. It's convenience stores. I mean, I think they did a heck of a job putting in here what the definition should be around an interstate.
I do too. I just think we do need some definition around what some of these things are. What is retail, what is commercial, so that we can put more definition around what we're going to allow into the area. I mean, what fits those things? Then when someone comes, we know. Yes.
Can I just make an observation? When this originally came up about this particular parcel, I know there was a lot of different conversations about what could happen. Rezoning was one of them. At that time, I don't think y'all had a preliminary site plan. We just had an oral sort of somebody speaking about what might go there.
Right.
And when it came to rezoning, the concern was that it could be spot zoning because there wasn't any C2. But I think that you guys have both made good points that if this is intended to be interchange exit C3, we're currently sitting on C3 property. And I think that most people in town would say that this is probably not the interchange where we are here. So there might be an opportunity, and the concern about spot zoning goes away if you also rezone City Hall. So I guess I'm wondering out loud.
I'm not sure. And if you only do it to effectively rezone the neighboring property, I'm not sure that eliminates any argument about spot zoning. But
Well, I guess I'm putting out there that if there were a duly put together preliminary proposal for the town of Monteagle and you wanted to consider rezoning for whatever this person might want to do on that track, that there would be that option, because we have C2 across the way. You then are simply extending the C2 district that already exists. And I think from my perspective, certainly City Hall is probably not an interstate interchange exit use. We're probably a non-conforming use here. So I just put that out there as an idea.
I mean, I can see various options. I mean, there were a lot of issues that particular night. I mean, that I don't know that it this is the time to revisit that night.
No,
But I can see a lot of options, but one, having a plan, two, having some definitions, so we know what we're talking about, could bring us very far in a direction for a productive conversation. And I think we would be able to get something.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know whether the owners and the players would be willing to come and talk, but I think that's typically how it's done. And it seems like
You mean the owners of all property in
the person who has the contract on the property. So apparently we haven't heard from them. And Dean's talking to us, I'm looking at Dean. It sounds like whoever was there at that meeting was not a duly ordered representative?
I don't know about that, but I think this issue, you have to look at the totality of C3. You cannot take this parcel of land, what you think may come over here. I own property with a partnership across the interstate that's C3. If we come up here and want to put in an application for a commercial business, you don't have any definition of that. The original zoning ordinance, and I've got the original book, it says what Richard has said, but it used the terms use is permitted, use is prohibited, and use is permitted on review. And for the first 20 years or so, that was the terminology stuff. And the state planners were in charge of the planning office at that time, not Southeast Tennessee Development, but it's basically the same stuff they've done. We were always told C3 is basically your catch-all zone that you don't want in the downtown district, or basically in C2. And if you read the C3 definition, and those were changed as far as C3, your other interstate exit down here should be C3, not C2. Just look at it. Look at the map. It's all screwed up. We're sitting here saying we're not dealing with one piece of property, but you are in actuality. But it's all screwed up. It's not just one thing. And so you can take whatever side you want and have ammunition.
Well, I mean, I fully agree with you. Things have just changed over time with pick this and change that and pick that and...
Well, what I call the Swanee exit, we never wanted truck stops, fireworks stands, and that stuff. And so we tried to keep that out, so we put that in C3. At one time I had an offer there where Sonic is. Mr. Jimmy Carter had Tennessee Alabama Fireworks. He wanted to buy that and put up a metal building with a big sign like they've got at Kimball. And he said, you know, I want to buy that from you. And I said, you can't, we don't allow fireworks stands. And he said, well, maybe we can get the zoning changed. I said, no, I don't think you can. And so that's why there's not a Tennessee Alabama fireworks stand down there. Now he's dead and gone. It might be something else now. But those are just two examples of why originally that was in C2. But at some point in time, it was flipped, and that exit down there was put in a C3 zone. You can go back. I think James David was the chairman, and maybe Tony Gillum was on the planning commission. I can't remember who the others were, but I was at the meeting here, so that's been probably within 4 years. The zoning was C3 down there, and it was changed back to C2, which, if you read the definition of C3 interchange, that should be C3. And you've got people here tonight that's going to talk about developing property adjoining the interstate and adjoining the exit ramp, and they're in a C2. And we're worried about one lot here on Main and Sample Street instead of the totality of our community.
The proposal is for all of C3, not just that lot.
Yes.
So we've been chasing our tail since how long?
You pick a date.
Sounds like the majority of the issues that I've run into with whether or not retail or anything in C3 is whether or not you have a definition. Again, if you don't have definitions, so I think we're actually putting the cart before the horse. You need to get a definition before you allow it in C3.
Well, you should have done that before you enacted it. When you have property owners wanting to do something with their property, I think it's vastly unfair to say, well, we don't have a definition. We can't do that.
You can, state law allows you to, that's why it's called amendments.
The law says, I think what's fair to a property owner.
The property owners have not changed.
The city wants to take control of the property up here and dictate what we're going to do because we don't have a definition.
No, property owner, this would be for any future developments, not for
But
like
they've had
current
40
property
years,
owners.
everyone has had 40 years to put definitions on that. It hadn't changed since 84.
Wow.
So why hasn't it been changed in the last 40 years?
I don't know, I've not been here, Dean. But that's what
But
my
we pick and
recommendation
choose
now
when
would
issues
be
come
to-
up.
Well,
I
I
have
think-
been here for 40 years,
Yeah.
and it's numerous.
You should have changed it.
I'm sure they do. I got liquor by the drink, I implemented zoning, liquor by the drink, the packaged liquor, and if you look at the revenue items today, those are big revenue items. And we're sales tax driven, and because we don't like the concept of somebody's business model, then we come up with reasons why we're not gonna do that.
Well, but Dana, these are clear and defined.
I'm not arguing that.
Okay.
Are you saying that you think that retail and merchandise cannot be in a C3?
I'm saying it's not directly related to an interstate exchange.
Well, the ordinance says they cannot be in a C3,
But-
retail and commercial.
Yeah, I know, and that's the issue that we're here for, but you've got lots of people that get off the interstate may come into some kind of business, and I'm assuming if they got off the interstate and pulled up in the parking lot, then it's interstate related. Or what's your definition of interstate related?
I'll make the flip argument, Dean, that for 40 years we haven't had a definition for retail and commercial uses, but also for 40 years we haven't allowed retail and commercial uses in C3, so why should we change now?
Now, I don't know that that's the fact.
That's-
If it was truly the catch-all,
But it's not, because the
Well, it's not
ordinance-
today.
Yeah, the ordinance doesn't have it.
anything
in retail
commercial
and
except
uses.
adult bookstores.
So
is
I
got to
think,
be.
we don't have to be beholden to 40 years ago. We can say
I'm
that
certainly not.
things that, now that we can put definitions and we can allow it in there because we understand that the times have changed.
And I agree with that, but I think the matter here is the planning commission has been tasked with either approving it or voting it down. And we beat about whatever the wet horse or dead horse or whatever that saying is.
Well, my personal opinion is, I'd like to be able to put something, but I want to make sure it's the right thing. I'm dealing a lot right now with South Haven, Mississippi, and they are super restrictive with all different sizes, way too much. But I do think there some amount and different definition and size with retail and commercial is appropriate. And I know that we're smaller than South Haven, but I can see the benefit of having the definitions and having something to refer to when you get developers and people coming in wanting to do things. And so I'd like to see that we're going to do it correctly and not just react to every single thing as it comes in. So that's just my position.
Well, so if I own this, I don't know, it's 2 or 3 acre tract, what it is, as the property owner, I should not be allowed to put a business on it that the site plan would accommodate everything that your site plan requires, and it be sell goods and services of whatever type, and they may come off the interstate and they may not. I don't think you can say interstate. I think those days are gone. You may sell internet too, so that's worldwide, so I think we've got to get past that. But anyway, if you've got a parcel of land that will accommodate a 8,000 square foot building, the parking spaces, the setbacks, all the requirements that we look at, then we're saying, no, you can't use anything that would take up more than a half acre, or 3/4 of an acre.
Well, I don't know if she's saying that, but I'm gonna read the C3 again.
No, you don't have to, I know what it
I
says.
like reading, though, I've got.
Well, go ahead.
C3 interchange commercial district is intended to meet the special opportunities and needs at interchanges with interstate highways. It is to serve the needs of the motoring public and commercial vehicles, as well as addressing the unique commercial opportunities and problems created by access to interstate highway. Excluded all those uses which do not provide services or accommodations directly toward interstate traffic. Now, you're saying if somebody just wants to get off and shop,
Why was it put in a C3 if you're gonna deny retail and commercial when you don't even have a definition for it?
you're not going to deny it, you're going to restrict it to what it says in
You
here.
don't know what it is,
Well,
No, it's not included in here, so I
but you still
don't have to know what it is.
What is it in C1?
It's what?
What is commercial and retail and commercial?
It is.
Not uses permitted, but I mean, what is the definition of it?
I have no idea what the definition is.
Right.
I'm not sitting here today. You asked me last week
Right.
that I have the definition.
So I don't think any of this is gonna change. I think, tonight, you guys just need to, the council asked for, it go to the planning commission for a recommendation. I think that was the, Mayor, was that the?
Actually, last month, we asked Jonathan to put this together, and so he did, is the way I remember it.
And then that would go to the mayor and alderman. If you asked him to prepare an ordinance, and upon acceptance here, it would go to the mayor and alderman.
That's upon recommendation.
Recommendation, yes.
right. That's what happened last time.
So, yeah,
And prior to that, at the city meeting, we discussed it, and it was agreed upon that it needed to go to the planning commission for review and recommendation. Is that, Mayor, is that the,
Say that again, huh?
at the city meeting before that last planning commission meeting,
Yes.
the discussion with the city council was that it needed to be sent back to the planning commission for review and recommendation.
Yes, and that's what prompted.
And that's what
asking
happened at the
Jonathan
last
to
planning
do the
commission
ordinance.
meeting.
All right. Let me throw in my 2 cents, and I hate to be simplistic and all of that, but in the old days, commercial meant non-residential. So you had residential, commercial, and industrial. So I don't get why that's a problem in definitions. The other thing is, what is not retail? I mean, if you're selling goods, even services, is that not retail? And I don't know, that's a question. But I don't understand really why we couldn't put those in C3. This interchange, maybe that was something that came about when they put in the interstates. But I'd like to see a definition for the interstate or the interchange that needs further definition of this. I guess, somebody tell me here, why can't we have retail in C3? I guess that's my question.
Well,
Zoning
often,
ordinance.
Okay, other than the zoning ordinance, I mean, if you go into a store or a gas station, or you buy a newspaper, isn't that all retail?
Or convenience stores are a separate item, they're included.
Okay. But they're retail. That's my point.
You're not going to tie me down to a definition tonight, I promise
And
you.
David?
David Filter, I think if you have a business that meets that overriding criteria, catering, and I'd say substantially, but at least primarily to the motoring public, it can be retail. But if you're collecting sales tax from the state of Tennessee, that's a retail sale. So,
Well, convenience stores are allowed in C3.
and often commercial, I mean, I haven't researched the definition, but often where I have seen it, commercial is gonna be more of your big box type.
There's levels of commercial. Okay?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
And Monteagle is not the type of city that Walmart wants to come to. So we're never gonna have to deal with that. I mean, in my lifetime. Not
Not,
2,500 people, Walmart's not gonna come here. They got one 17 miles down the road both ways. They got a Home Depot, they got a Lowe's, they got everything. It's not gonna come to Monteagle.
right.
So we don't have to decide on that. So the commercial we're dealing with when we say commercial, is a dollar store or a, you know, fish and tackle shop or a gun shop or something, you know. It's not big stuff. I mean, you know, we don't have big stuff to offer. We don't have the people that draw there.
And some of those places have their smaller versions of
Correct.
their places.
Correct.
That would still be considered commercial.
Right, I agree to that.
If we were to amend the ordinance,
I mean, I already know.
say, without
Vote on it?
further definition,
Don't do it, so.
retail and commercial businesses are permitted in the C3 zone, how would the C3 zone then differ from the C2 zone? I mean, maybe we wouldn't need a C3 zone, or, I'm not sure.
I would have to look to see where the major differences.
There are some things that are permitted in C3 and not elsewhere, like the truck stop.
Truck service related,
Service
record
stations.
service.
Yeah, service stations maybe, but almost everything else that's permitted in C2 would then be permitted in C3.
And it used to say, on uses permitted, like in C2, it would list those, and it would say, and any use permitted in C1, originally. And I know we can't rely on that, but just give that as an example. And C3 would say uses permitted, and it would say, and any uses permitted in C1 or C2 or whatever it was. I can go back and bring that
It's not
book.
like that now. I mean,
Yeah, no, I know it's not.
I think to go to Dean's point, I think tonight's thing is, you're gonna have to, vote to either recommend, approve to recommend it, or deny recommendation of this. The only other thing would be tabling, but I don't know what tabling would do for another month, especially since, again, there is no definite. I mean, the issue is whether or not you'll allow it in C3. Of course, that process becomes, if it's approved, then it would go immediately to the next board mayor alderman meeting. If it's not approved, then at the next board mayor alderman meeting, they can vote to take it up and have their 2 readings. That is the process that state law has outlined.
Why didn't we just?
Well, what about all these other items? What about all these other items that are in C2 that are not in C3? Are we not going to deal with all of them? I mean, we're picking and choosing here. We can get golf course. It's in here.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I think.
I read them all.
Yeah.
Shooting ranges.
I think
kennels.
one thing that, as you look at zoning, and we talk about, this will never come, and this will not, if you look at places, look down Kimball, I think 40, 30, 30, whatever years ago, they probably would have said the same thing, but when they enacted zoning, when they did that, they had a plan of, we're going to make ourselves attractive to these businesses to come. That's one thing you consider with zoning, is that it makes it so that way a developer knows, hey, they have a plan. This is what their plan is. This is what they want exactly here. We know that we're not having to worry about something that is going to be detrimental to our business if we bring that. That's what the idea of zoning should be, is that it's to make it clear to every developer what they can do, what's going to be surrounding them, and that they're not going to be negatively impacted if they bring their business there. But that's I think is addressing kind of the big one. But in terms of what to address tonight is that, you have an amendment before you. You can either vote to recommend, vote to not recommend, or table it to next month.
Okay.
Maybe this is a reasonable time to bring up that we are now under contract with Inc. Codes to do a full review of our zoning ordinance. They're gonna have us a schedule by Friday. So Eric has COVID right now, but I talked to him today, and so by Friday, we're gonna have a schedule. In their preliminary schedule, they said the full zoning ordinance would be reviewed by week 4, and weeks 4 to 6 would be helping you guys get up to speed on what his recommendations are across the zoning ordinance, so that then they can focus on some of the downtown and multifamily residential districts. So I don't know where the best place to put that, but it seems like maybe it fits well here. So we're under contract with him for 8 months. Just if questions come up, the way their contract is set up, there is flexibility in what they do. So if you have specific questions with a specific developer, they're willing to have a non-binding conversation, because you guys carry all the weight of decision-making, but willing to have a non-binding conversations with potential developers and that sort of thing. So they are a resource that now, as of 2 days ago, is on the books with the town of Miami.
Jonathan, if no action is taken and it's tabled, does the council have the right to bring it up at the next city meeting?
I would say no, since they need to make, the way that I understand state law is they either approve or not. I would think they would need to make a decision by next month's meeting, whether they're going to approve or deny it.
So
because state law says it's either approved, if they approve it, then it's automatically sent. If it's denied, it doesn't say anything about tabling. Because tabling basically means that they're just waiting for the next, it's not approved and it's not denied.
Right. So technically, they could just table it from now on, and it would never, the council would never have a right to deal with it?
I don't think they could do that. I think by next month, they would need, the idea of tabling is, I think you would probably have to follow the same procedures that you would table for like a plat or something like that, or business. You gotta get the business done.
And on the plats, it has to be done within so many
60 days
or it
without a plat.
automatically becomes approved.
Yeah.
So you're saying that would be the rule
I
of
would
thumb
say that's you don't want it in table unless there's a clear reason why, where there's you're trying to put definitions, or you're trying to put something where you have to table.
So that would be similar to the vested rights of the planning commission has a timeline.
Yeah, you would want to make, you don't table something just to delay it from going to council.
You shouldn't.
Yeah. That'd be more of a legal question than anything else. I don't think there's anything. The way the state law reads, though, in terms of an ordinance, it has to be either approved or denied. That's when the legislative body takes action.
If I may suggest, because we can go on all night, I'm sure they write books about this stuff. If we're agreed, I think we should table it, have a workshop, and end this. We got definitions, call Jonathan with 50 questions. Well, let's have a workshop to resolve it and end this. Because no, I don't want to go on forever and ever. I mean, it's either we table it, we define it, or if you don't want to do that, then pass whatever there is, or don't pass whatever there is. But the back and forth conversations could lead to hourly debates.
So the ordinance that you rewrote for us and the amended ordinance, and we passed it 5-0 just a few minutes ago, is this, do you need to wad this up, throw it in the trash?
What's that? What ordinance?
Is this not worth anything? Is this what we're talking about?
No, that's not what we're talking about.
I'm lost, I guess.
It's the ordinance that's at the end.
Yeah, I see that. We did C3 zoning. This is C3
Oh,
zoning.
that's not the one we
That's not
passed.
one.
We have a workshop, it can't be just to define
Yeah, that's right.
retail and commercial. It's gonna have to be involved in the definition of where it fits in C1, C2, C3. If there is such a way of defining that.
Is there additional facts you need to?
I can work and get that information in terms of like what, there's I'll only talk to Chad, there's a kind of an international like planning definitions where it gives definitions for different things like retail and commercial, stuff like that. I can look and see what that says, see what, other municipalities around here, what their, what their definitions are, so you can have kind of similar, what is this area, how, businesses are coming, what are they expecting this area to look like?
So Jonathan, what you're going to find is a lot, and I've looked at like Manchester, Tullahoma, some other municipalities around, not exact same size as us, but you'll find 10 different definitions of retail and or commercial. So we'll have to either merge some together that fit our needs, but you can't just pick one.
Yeah, no,
So
obviously not.
bring
Yeah.
several to the table. And the other thing too is a lot of these cities have more than just 3 commercial zones. And they're very specific about C2, C3, C4, and C5, and where those properties are located in reference to frontage on a main street or frontage on a 4-lane highway or at an intersection thing. So those have to all be considered when we're researching a definition.
And to be fair, in the workshop, we're going to have to also address anything else that is in C2 as to, here again, I don't know how we can just put one item and not address everything that's in it. We've got drugstores and pharmacies. What we're going to do when they want to put another Rexall down here. So if we're going to address it, let's address it right.
I guess the question is, in terms of that, when would we want that workshop?
Well, I mean, wouldn't a pharmacy be retail and commercial?
Well, I think is pharmacy, but is the pharmacy already, is that a use that's explicitly, so that means that it would not be included in that, it's explicitly included in the zoning ordinance.
So I don't know what we're going to say is included in our definition. You're going to task us with doing a definition on something we don't know what's supposed to be in.
I'm not sure, I mean, I don't know if I'm the one tasking, it sounds like the mayor wants a workshop for us to.
Therefore,
Yeah.
I move that we table this, have a workshop, and have a resolution or a consensus or something to pass on to either the mayor and alderman or the next planning commission, whatever's appropriate.
It's going to have to be pretty broad.
Yeah, really. Discussion on the motion.
Yes, since we have it here, when we, I guess first approve it, but then we need to figure out when we're going to have this workshop. So I know when to get all the stuff ready for you guys.
It'll be in March. And we'll check our calendars and I'll send out something tomorrow suggesting some dates. Any discussion on the motion?
Do we have a motion?
Yes. Okay,
Second. I must have been running my mouth.
that's fine. Go ahead.
Any more discussion? From anybody?
All those in favor?
I got that part down. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Okay. Next, this should be easy. Planning Commission meeting time changed bylaws from 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. Any discussion?
You need a motion?
Well, I want to know if anybody's got any issues with that. We talked about it before.
I move we adopt the proposed ordinance amending the bylaws to change the time of the meeting from 5 o'clock to 4.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
What was the motion again? To amend the bylaws of the planning commission to change the time of the regular meetings from 5 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Any further discussion? All those for?
Aye.
All against? Motion carries. Next is any properly presented new business.
Mr. Bacon?
I've certainly been enjoying it. I'll just tell you a story. We own the corner from Kim Nixon's dad. Had a great pleasure of dealing with him. The only piece of property I've ever bought that never went to contract. We just, if you knew Mr. Nixon, it was a pleasure. I'm trying to figure out, basically what we try to do is see what you guys want and try to put it in there, but I understand we're zone C2, and I can tell you what, who has interest in this property. If fast food has interest in this property, convenience store would like to be on the corner next to the church. There's some issues there with the church. Church has to find a new location because you can't sell beer. Convenience store's not gonna go in unless they sell beer. I think what we're gonna have to do is wait until y'all have an understanding of what you want, and we'll present we can tell you who has interest in there. One thing I'd like to share with you is that it's my belief from Nashville to Atlanta, and Knoxville to Atlanta, and Atlanta to Nashville, every exit's gonna be full with this, services of fast food. So, good tax revenue. I know we're doing some Speedway, which is bought by 7-Eleven, and then that's several houses that isn't property, but they expect to start doing $5,000 a day, first day, opening up. I want to be in Chattanooga, corner by that. I got involved in this property because the developer out of Florida wanted to put a 7-Eleven on the corner, and said, you buy this, I'll buy that portion from you. And then that fell through. Speedway got bought by 7-Eleven. Speedway strong in what they call the CFL lines of the trailers, which you do not want at that exit at all. But really, I believe that you don't want it up here at all. But we're not here to try to put a square peg in a round hole. We just want to try to figure out what you want and proceed. So,
How many acres do you have there?
14. We've got
the main parcel is 12 acres, and there's an additional parcel that's to the right of the church. It's 2 acres, and that parcel is C1, and the main parcel is C2.
which part?
It's 424 West Main Street. But
And where are the 2 acres?
so it's the flea market parcel. There's a church to the right when you get off the interstate, and it's to the right of the church.
Okay.
And, to kind of go along with what he was saying is, the site plan is dictated by whoever goes first, obviously. And, we've got a lot of interest from C-stores, which is contingent on the church, because of the alcohol sales. And then, being able to generate some good interest from QSRs, which, could go alongside the C-store. Or if the C-store doesn't go, we'd have more space for QSRs. And then it's my understanding that y'all had a lot of interest from hotels recently, and I've generated some more hotel interest on the back of the property. And possibly a strip center concept, those are pretty viable because they're for tenants. It's an easier bet as opposed to a freestanding store. They're more likely to do that in a market like this. And so those are kind of our possibilities. And I do have a site plan. This was from the C-store. If you guys would like to see it, this is obviously dynamic. Could change.
This is Sam Ritter.
I'm excited here.
Excuse me, I'm just curious, have you all spoken to all these?
Not for this property specifically, but I have spoken to all these for a couple others.
That's still good.
We should have a conversation. We just did a bunch of retail work.
Okay.
I got a lot of data, I think, from some people that might want to go for it.
It's all
They own that whole
showed interest in.
property, right?
No, but Key City and RGA and Walmart Market, so they identified as possible targets.
No, the church had 2 parcels, this is a 2-acre parcel right
Well,
here.
but all these requires,
So, does it
2,000,
include the
traffic
parcel
count.
that's between
And a day,
here
and
and Papa
from
Ron's?
what the police chief said,
That's just for the 2-acre
22,000.
parcel.
Okay.
I think all these gonna be more in population.
What all these mean is they want to be on the way to a Walmart, and they want to be peeling off customers that would otherwise be going to Walmart. And so we don't have a Walmart, and so there's been that conversation with
If they're going over the hill toward,
because that's their business model.
no, but if they're going right toward Kimball, then they are on the way.
They want to be less painful shopping, they
I
want to
thought
be
we, I
Walmart
thought
shopper,
we,
and have it more
I thought
pleasant.
something was done there.
That's what they're doing.
Property line, door to door. Door to door.
But there's the good news is they were research all the
Door to door, we probably got 300 feet.
I'm pretty sure,
We've got some
I'm pretty sure
Trader Joe's had even odder. Yeah.
Door to door. We didn't want to use by the door, the common door or whatever it was, it could be like a back door or something. Don't quote me, but I'm thinking. We could get that confirmed, and we could deal with it. You got church there. No, I didn't, I thought about it for that very reason. We're not 300 feet, that was probably. But if it's 300 feet door to door,
It shouldn't have been held
That's a good enough reason to have that.
It's too bad, like I said. This is part of like yours. We should get a restaurant.
I'll get that. I just really want to verify I'm hearing.
Trump signed the Biden closing down all the orders that started with 8 years.
Because when people come out, they say something.
Well, they can be cute.
Let me say this, I'll take a few time. Why don't we, if we can confirm that we got 300 feet door to door, then we'll get a corrected site plan which includes this little triangle here, and then we'll show you what we've got, what we can put in on the other side. There's some exit in Chattanooga, exit 11, and it's like, we're almost chicken fried chicken on here, there's blanks on here, some concepts. People like that are interested. They're interested in going in here. Get the tax revenue. We just want to be, if they don't do it, catch all doors.
That was Mr. Bacon's first comment when he and I met. We're with the city, but does the city want it? That makes sense, but also it has to be beneficial to them.
I don't want to build my career as a business. No, we'll start with,
Well, we'll start off, I'll check you out tomorrow on the 300 feet. I'll answer that question, and then we'll proceed. Nate, as he just said, went to the Retail Academy. He's chairman of the steering committee of Imagine Montego, which is a concentration of this area. I mean, over there is one piece, yes, over there's another, but this would be almost the centerpiece.
one different way to hire. I don't know if you're getting fast food. One here with the hotel and motel, all these. And the only all that we know what a definition is. Yeah, each one will have its own.
The reason Lucy was looking at
That meant something to them, because they
That's what we have to
should have
discuss,
seen
whether
one. I
that.
understand the definition says it should be. I still wouldn't want to put it.
Waiting on the tenth one.
It'll be a long meeting.
Let's still have.
We said,
You come, David.
We just want, I just want to make sure that we know what
her ruling, I've got another hearing for
Is what we talked about. Sarcastic.
You tell me what. We're gonna reconvene. Y'all can continue this. Nate will keep you here all night long. Go to Nate, reconvene, me and sit down. There's no way to say it. Okay, we're gonna reconvene.
Mr. Bacon, do we keep this?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can give you, what's this other one?
This is survey.
Thank y'all very much.
Survey if you want.
Appreciate the conversation, and if you want to hang around, I'm sure some people may want to have more conversation.
We will.
Well, let me see if we can, any more properly presented new business? Anybody, well, he stood up, so I know he's successful. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any discussion? All for? Aye. Not even gonna ask, all against?
We want to stay till tomorrow.